Wolfenstein 3D. It's the game that took an old stealth title and reimagined it as an action-packed shooter. This little game left a big impact as it laid the groundwork for the FPS genre. It would be almost a decade till it got a sequel, 2001's Return to Castle Wolfenstein, which was then followed by a 2009 entry simply titled Wolfenstein. Several shooters had come and gone by the time the 2009 one had released, including a small franchise named Call of Duty. When Activision released Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the game cemented COD as a juggernaut franchise. People loved COD and couldn't get enough, which is why from the late 2000s to the early 2010s, you had several games trying to ride COD's coattails. By the mid-2010s, COD hype was wearing thin, and gamers yearned for something new. Enter Machine Games, a studio founded by ex-Starbreeze Studios members. Their task? Make a new Wolfenstein. They did so with 2014's Wolfenstein The New Order, a game that combined old-school shooting with modern-day storytelling and gameplay tropes. Its success kickstarted the return of the boomer shooter and the revival of classic franchises like Doom and Shadow Warrior. Wolfenstein The New Order was my introduction to the series. It was one of the first games I got for my PlayStation 4 and I loved it. And nearly a decade later, The New Order remains one of my favorite shooters of all time.
In my dream, I smell the barbecue. I hear children. A dog. And I see someone. I think I see someone.
BJ Blazkowicz and several allied soldiers launch an assault on General Wilhelm Deathshead Strauss's fortified compound. It's a tough fight, but they push on until they're cornered by Deathshead himself. The few remaining troops, including BJ, narrowly escape, but some errant shrapnel lodges into BJ's skull, causing a coma. 14 years fly by in the blink of an eye, and a close call with death snaps him awake. Unfortunately for Blazkowicz, the Axis rules the world, and the resistance is scattered. Him and a nurse named Anya set out to find the resistance and a way to free the Third Reich's grasp on the world.
Glad to have you back, Veit.
Caroline, you're alive.
If you call shitting in a bag living, 3 pulverized vertebrae. You?
Head trauma, 4 inches of cast iron shrapnel right in the conch. Still in there.
Wolfenstein The New Order takes a series that had a little story and gives it a lot of story. I'm a sucker for alternate histories and what-if scenarios, and The New Order's take on Axis-occupied world feels like Starship Troopers meets Schindler's List. It's a world where the Germans landed on the moon, and the nations of the world heal to the might of the Reich. It's pulpy but plausible, and I think it helps how everything is played straight, which makes the over-the-top stuff stand out more. Like Starship Troopers, it satirizes fascism, and like Starship Troopers, it's ridiculously violent. Shotguns rip soldiers apart and well-placed headshots pop heads like champagne corks. During an interrogation, BJ gets information out of an officer by way of a chainsaw. For all the giant robots and Yiddish space magic the game has, it also reminds the player how the Third Reich is evil with a capital E. One mission sees Blazkowicz infiltrate a prison camp to find a scientist. The level is a shocking but frank reminder of how corrupt the Axis was. You sneak your way through a morgue filled with dead bodies and take out the officer committing these sick experiments. This makes the second half, where you blast your way out, an extra bit satisfying as you lay waste to a facility where thousands were worked to the bone.
So long since I practiced my English. It's a dying tongue. You? I've seen you before. Oh, I like you.
The New Order's villains are no longer stereotypical evil Germans or Mecha Hitler. They're twisted monsters whom you want to see get their comeuppance. The villains include Frau Engel, a woman who enjoys being sadistic and toying with her victims. The sequence on the train with her and her squeeze is one of the most tension-filled moments I've ever played. It's a simple point A to point B level, but with a roadblock that is Frau Engel. The scene that plays out is a simple card game that feels like it'll go south at any moment. Then there's Deathshead. When we last saw him in Wolfenstein 09, he was trying to harness the power of the Black Sun to take over the world. In The New Order, he's reimagined as a Mengele-type scientist who enjoys performing sick experiments and stuffing the brains of BJ's former friends in the RoboCop 2 style robots. Deathshead and Frau Engel are the type of villains you love to hate. You want BJ to put an end to their terror, even if it means putting his life on the line.
Don't be touching my baby girl without permission now, soldier man. You just stick to them guns and the Nazi killing.
What about you? Why don't you step up and join the fight?
What fight? Your fight? You took your orders from the man. The U.S. motherfucking government, man. What a trip.
Wolfenstein: The New Order features some of the most compelling characters put into a shooter. Strong writing and acting gives these characters depth, especially BJ Blazkowicz. In previous games, BJ was a simple man. He squashed goose-steppers like bugs and fought for the greater good. The New Order reimagines Blazkowicz as someone with the skills of an action hero but the gravitas of Humphrey Bogart. When I first played The New Order many years ago, I hated BJ. I wasn't a fan of his constant monologuing or how they made him more of an everyman. But now that I'm older, I love how Machine Games reinterpreted him. He's still a badass, just a more vulnerable one. He longs for a life of peace, free from the war, death, and loss he's experienced. The levels set at the headquarters are where him and the rest of the cast get to shine. Not only are these parts a nice reprieve from the carnage, but they're also a great way to get some character development. One moment, Wyatt is talking with BJ about his leadership issues, and in another, BJ is helping someone find their lost wedding ring. These moments add depth without the need for big set pieces and speak to the New Order's ability to mix quiet moments with big, loud shooting galleries.
Doing good, Cap. I'll keep scouting for a place to drop you off close to the Nautica railway wagon. I don't think I'll find one. Too much debris and ticked off Nazis.
Wolfenstein: The New Order takes an old-school formula and adds flavor to it. The result is an enticing concoction of fast-paced shooting with modern sensibilities. BJ has health and armor, a weapon wheel with all his available guns, and he can dual wield just about every gun save for a couple. Each level is packed with secrets like Enigma codes and gold. If you find a level map, it highlights where the collectibles are. It meshes these old-school mechanics with modern ones like iron sights, a cover system, and health that regenerates to the nearest number once you stop taking damage. After years of shooters with a 2-weapon limit and regenerating health, it's refreshing to play a game where health and armor are essential for survival, and you have a wide arsenal to mess with.
You're still breathing, you chummy bastard. You're tough as they come, you know. Jesus Christ.
There's no shortage of ways to kill Germans in the New Order. Pistols, shotguns, assault rifles, laser rifles. If there's a gun, you can use it. Each gun has an alternate firing attachment to unlock. This includes a silencer for the pistol and shrapnel shells for the shotgun. Out of all the guns available, my personal favorite is the Laser Kraftwerk, or LKW. Not long after acquiring a welding torch, BJ finds the LKW in a lab. At first it's only capable of shooting lasers or cutting through metal plates, but the upgrades you find turn the LKW into an unstoppable killing machine. One well-placed shot can destroy a mech, and additional upgrades like a rechargeable battery mean you won't rely on charging stations as much. While you can easily blast through the game with the pistol and assault rifle, it's more satisfying to switch up weapons to annihilate the opposition. Nothing says cathartic like running down a corridor and dual-wielding shotguns that turn goose steppers into ketchup.
Anyway, I started blasting.
Combat isn't the only thing you'll be doing, as there's also stealth. Spread throughout the levels are officers. If you're spotted, they radio in reinforcements. The stealth is a basic line of sight system, and while it's fun to sneak around and pop guards with a silenced pistol, it's also the weakest part of the gameplay, in my opinion. They can be oblivious to BJ's presence, even on the higher difficulties, and they aren't terribly concerned when their own men start dropping like flies. It's much more satisfying to mix and match playstyles because if you stick with just stealth, you're missing out on what makes the New Order's combat so enjoyable.
You may want this for yourself, Captain Blazkowicz, but I'm planning on keeping it.
Wolfenstein: The New Order features a passive upgrade system where you unlock new abilities by fulfilling certain requirements. This could be a certain number of kills with a particular gun, or performing 3 slide kills. Upgrades are broken into different categories like tactical, assault, and demolition. There are also health and armor upgrades to find each level. Which type you find depends on who you save during the opening level. I think the passive upgrade system is a cool concept. Most of them are easy to obtain, and like combat, it gives you a reason to mix up your tactics and not be as vanilla as possible. The levels are well designed and feature secondary routes that let you bypass enemies or lead to hidden rooms filled with supplies and secrets. You'll find yourself searching every nook and cranny for secrets. Some of them are easy to find, while others require you to go off the beaten path. During the opening level, you must choose to save either Fergus or Wyatt. If you save Fergus, you can hotwire panels, but if you save Wyatt, you get the ability to lockpick and drop acid with Jimi Hendrix. I think where Wolfenstein shines the most is its pacing. It hits a fine balance between story and gameplay, and the gameplay itself is peppered with enough unique moments so the shooting and sneaking don't become repetitive. I already mentioned the train sequence in the HQ segments, but there's also a bit where BJ pilots a sub through the sewers and completes some basic puzzles to progress. Moments like this, or a part where you infiltrate a moon base disguised as a scientist, remind me of games like the original Red Faction or Medal of Honor.
Calm breath. It's just the moon. Seen it 1,000 times.
What really surprised me replaying The New Order is there's no multiplayer. Remember, this came out during a period when every game had multiplayer, regardless of if it needed it or not. For Wolfenstein The New Order to release with a single player campaign only was kind of a ballsy move, but I think it helps that the campaign is so great that it doesn't need multiplayer to justify its price tag.
My father taught me this rhyme as a child. Now many other songs for different places.
Wolfenstein The New Order is aged well visually. The game came out in 2014, a transitionary period where the next gen was starting to become dominant, but there were plenty of people still playing the old consoles, hence why The New Order is a cross-gen release. On PS4, characters and environments look sharp, and the art direction is stunning. I did encounter some wacky physics shenanigans, but nothing game-breaking. The 360 version is another story. As I mentioned, the game was a cross-gen release, but unlike certain last-gen ports, The New Order on Xbox 360 isn't a bastardized version of the main game. The visuals have been downgraded, but content-wise, it's the same game, just chopped up into 4 discs. Credit where credit is due, I'm impressed the 360 version was able to preserve the game in its entirety at the cost of visual quality. Characters and environments are as detailed, several lighting and shadow effects are either simplified or absent, and dead enemies disappear when the body count gets too high. Wolfenstein The New Order on Xbox 360 might be visually inferior to its H-Gen and PC counterparts, but just because it doesn't look as good, doesn't mean it's a bad game. The sound is superb. Guns sound powerful, and certain sound effects like explosions rock the subwoofers. The real standout of the sound is the voice acting. Brian Bloom is excellent as BJ Blazkowicz. He gives the performance a lot of depth, and it goes a long way to making the character interesting. The game's music was composed by Mick Gordon. Gordon's music in The New Order is great. There's quiet ambience during cutscenes or the HQ segments, and louder, punchier music during combat. If it isn't clear, I love Wolfenstein The New Order. This game converted me to the Church of BJ, and I'm happier because of it. I think the reason why it works so well is because of 3 things: story, characters, and gameplay. Even though it's the 5th entry in the series, it doesn't require immediate knowledge of the past games to know what's going on. There are nods, but it's more content telling its own story, and for the better, if you ask me. The world of The New Order is fascinating yet terrifying. It's a world where the Third Reich controls every inch of society, a world where technology advanced so fast they were able to colonize space quicker than we were. But it's also a world where anyone who disagrees with them ends up dead or worse. Dropped into this new world order is BJ Blazkowicz, a man who's gone from a bona fide badass to a man out of time, but not out of determination. He faces an uphill battle, but he's willing to do whatever it takes to bring down the Axis. Complementing the solid story and characters is the gameplay. It blends an old school mentality with new school sensibilities. It's fast, it's entertaining, and a welcome refresher from the glutton of modern military shooters that crowd the market at the time. The stealth is on the easy peasy side, and there's a couple of sudden difficulty spikes, but the core of the combat, the shooting of weaponry, is satisfying. Say what you will about the later Wolfenstein games, and there's a lot to say about them, but Wolfenstein The New Order is a fantastic shooter that reinvigorated a dormant franchise by offering a hearty, well-done mix of story and gameplay. Wolfenstein The New Order gets a 9 out of 10, and a 7 out of 10 for the 360 version.